There are many emotional and physical triggers that can bring about a depressive feeling, and being aware of them can help us manage our mood better. So to provide insight on this is trauma therapist Louisa Niehaus. Welcome, Louisa. Depression. It feels like at some point in time, not in the too distant past, almost everybody you spoke to was on some form of antidepressive medication. Is that starting to change? Are people realizing that they can manage their moods and their emotional states a lot better without medication?
Stacey, I think that depression has more publicity, and I think we're getting to know a lot more about depression than we used to. Everybody goes through bouts of sadness. However, when it lasts longer than 6 months and it severely interferes with your life, it's classed as major depression. And that's when people should be cognizant of how they're feeling and how it's impairing and affecting their work or their social lives or their family life. With regard to medication, some medication works for some people and not for others. So I would strongly suggest discussing it in detail with your GP. There are two forms of antidepressants. One is an SSRI and the other is an SNRI. So, and there's a variety of antidepressants.
And in a nutshell, they deal with serotonin reuptake in the brain.
Yes.
So is serotonin the neurotransmitter that we look at when we deal with depression?
It could be serotonin, it could be norepinephrine, and it could be dopamine.
Okay.
So there are three specific neurotransmitters that are the chemical messengers to the brain that control our physiological and emotional functions.
So when I started experiencing sort of bouts of depression, it was a marked difference for me because I do have quite an outgoing, happy-go-lucky disposition, and then all of a sudden I wanted to spend more time alone and, just felt down and gloomy, and I just knew that wasn't me. It was easy for me to make that distinction, though. I don't know why. Is it because I knew that the one state was very different from the other state? And are people able to make those type of distinctions as easily?
Women are more susceptible to depression, maybe because of their hormonal states. Women are also more able to identify depression. Men seem to feel that it's a mark of weakness. So they don't often seek help. Yes, depression is characterized by feeling out of sorts in a number of areas. Your sleep is disrupted, your eating patterns are disruptive, maybe you're eating too much or too little without deliberately being aware of eating too much or too little. You tend to withdraw from your friends, your family, wanting to spend a lot of time alone, lack of interest in sex, lack of interest in social activities, a number of factors that ordinarily you would undertake with great gusto. You find yourself withdrawing from the world.
What other types of symptoms, because again now we're talking about these nuanced symptoms, it's never just black and white, it's all these grey areas in between. So what else can we look out for?
There are biological, social and psychological factors to look out for. So biological is perhaps your family has a history of depression. It doesn't automatically mean that you're going to be prone to depression.
So it doesn't always predispose you to...
But that's one of the markers. Psychological would be low mood, as I said before, lack of interest in social activities, in your normal activities, weepiness, feeling exceptionally sad, feeling hopeless. For some people, when it is more extreme, there would be suicide ideation, withdrawal, as I said, isolation. And physical symptoms would be lethargy, wanting to sleep, or perhaps not sleeping enough, waking up at odd times in the night, not being able to get back to sleep, lack of interest in exercise,
like a general lack of motivation in life?
Yes, just general lack of motivation.
Just the genetic sort of predisposition, if if you have a family member, mom, dad, brothers or sisters who have struggled with depression, does that then influence the way you see the world in general? So you may not have automatically had this, predisposition towards being depressive, but you just maybe don't see the world through rosy tinted glasses.
Yeah, it would be learned behavior. So
Yeah.
if you grew up in a family
Yeah.
where you had depressed parents, depressed siblings, you would probably have learnt that style or that way of coping.
Yeah.
And may not naturally be an ebullient, gregarious type of person.
Yes. So what about the world that we live in, the digital age that we live in? It's so easy to compare now. It's so easy to look at someone else's life and think, what have I achieved with my life? What am I doing? How come I can't buy these fancy clothes all the time and travel to these wonderful destinations? And why does this person look like they're 20 when they're 50? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how are those triggers affecting people's moods?
Well, there's something that's known as Facebook envy. So you log into Facebook and you see everybody having the most fabulous time, having the most wonderful and glamorous holidays, doing things that you're clearly not doing as you're sitting there in your pajamas eating a tub of ice cream and watching the Facebook feeds of all your friends. And it's not realistic because people are not going to post pictures of themselves on Facebook when they're having a miserable time. A kind of Bridget Jones type scenario.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. So one looks at that and compares oneself to that. And there's a great sense of dis-ease around that. Why am I not having the most fabulous social life? And I think it can be a trigger for depression.
What would you advise? What type of methods or sort of practical steps would you advise people implement to avoid getting into bouts of depression due to that type of scenario, Facebook envy?
I think it's important to have a reality check.
Okay,
so that would be the first thing. And to realize that people are not necessarily posting things that are realistic nor relevant to you. Look at your own life and see what's happy in your own life, what you enjoy the most. Perhaps it might be outdoor activities. It might be spending time with your family. Not necessarily looking at a static picture of something and not seeing what got that person there, or maybe that it was a special event like a wedding or an anniversary holiday, that it is a slice of life.
So does perspective not weigh heavily in any conversation around depression? Because what could be perceived as something terrible, horrible, inadequate for one person wouldn't be the same for another person.
Exactly.
So again, that reality check as well. One thing that was big for me was understanding nutritional deficiencies and how that can lead to depression. And you have, a similar experience. You want to share that with us?
Yes, I had a severe iron deficiency, and I was terribly, terribly depressed without realizing. And I'm a mental health professional.
Yeah.
So I did not realize that lack of iron was contributing to my low mood.
For me, it was an underactive thyroid, gut issues. And when it comes back to medication again, the gut issues, I read a fascinating book that describes that, if the gut is not absorbing nutrients, it's not absorbing medication either. So when you find that patients are very often, their doses of antidepressants are increased, it could be an indication that there's a gut issue. And when you repair the gut issue, there may not be a need for medication. What other types of triggers are there out there?
Often one will find that when one is suffering from depression, it goes hand in hand with substance abuse. So you may find that someone is drinking more, that they are abusing either prescription medication or drugs.
But those are means to an end, right?
Yeah, it is a way of people trying to assuage their sadness, their anxiety, their feelings of low mood. So another pertinent trigger is major life events that can be both happy or unhappy, surprisingly.
Okay.
So if you think about post a wedding or a major celebration that one has been looking forward to, or getting that fantastic job, there's an anticlimactic response to that, where you may feel like all the adrenaline's gone out, you've achieved that major goal, and you're kind of feeling a little bit flat afterwards.
Trevor Noah shared that experience, as being a comedian and hosting The Daily Show, and then found himself feeling more depressed. And Jim Carrey, opened up about his depression, and that's what led to Trevor Noah talking about it as well. And you would think, but you've got life, an amazing life that you're living. Why would you be depressed? Again, does it come back to perspective? Does it come back to comparison?
Right. I would say that one would need to know one's limits and boundaries. Be aware of what sort of tweaks you into that state of depression, what you're susceptible to. So when you know that if you watch too many Facebook feeds, that it's going to set you off, limit those experiences. And then, as you say, perspective. Do more of the things that do make you happy. Cooking, watching a funny movie, going into nature. Exercise is a wonderful boost in terms of depression, especially cardiovascular exercise. Do activities that encourage you to be with others as well. Social isolation and loneliness is a great contributor towards depression.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming in and chatting to us about it. Those are just some of the triggers. There are many, many more, but we'll bring you back and we'll continue the discussion. It's something that we really do need to discuss more frequently, and it is happening. It is a trend.